I want to talk now a little more seriously for a few final moments about what's at the core of our business here at home and in our foreign coverage, which is telling the truth in a way that is genuinely fair and independent of government, political, or business interests. That's the mission of the news organizations represented here, now sometimes jeered as the mainstream media, a phrase I've grown to hate, by critics who question the very idea of providing balanced coverage. As I've written in the Post, there is growing pressure in our business to be embedded, not just with armies when we're covering wars, but with nations, cultures, religions, political parties, and points of view. It should be axiomatic that people who make contributions to politicians and political parties will not also expect to be taken seriously as professional journalists. But as we've seen, even that simple precept is under attack. I think of the ICFJ and the fellowship of journalists around the world that it reflects as standing against those efforts to embed or to relativize the truth. As the idea of professionalism comes under attack, I hope we will stand together to help each other resist political, economic, and cultural pressures to trim the facts and leaning with the prevailing winds. It's hard enough to do that in Washington, let alone in Kabul, Islamabad, Beijing, Beirut, Jerusalem, and as we've seen, Brazil and Indonesia. My heroes, and I mean this genuinely, and it's why I'm so happy that there will be an award in my name. My heroes are people like the foreign journalists you've honored tonight, who are telling the truth even when it's risky to their very lives to do so, believing that they share a common mission and set of values with all of us in this room. Let me mention 4 examples of this one world of professionalism that I hope we will sustain. First, Tufik Mishlawi, who was my stringer, but really my teacher when I covered the Middle East for the Journal. Tufik ran a publication in Beirut called the Middle East Reporter, which compiled and translated all the overnight newspaper and radio reports from the Arabic news media, from which all the journalists and diplomats in town cribbed shamelessly. It gave every point of view clearly and objectively. It provided nuanced, unbiased analysis of what these stories meant. It had neither friends nor enemies. It was simply journalism of the highest order in the middle of Beirut. One night at the Commodore Hotel bar, Tufik confessed to me that his dream was to start the first real news service in the Arab world, an independent source of information that could compete with AP, UPI, and Reuters. His passion was the simple but sublime one of being a professional journalist, fair, fast, accurate, and unafraid. Tufik spent some wonderful years sharing that professionalism as director of training at the ICFJ, and there are few people here who remember him. He's back in Beirut now. He and his wife Philippa sent word last week that their son Nadim has just made them grandparents. So, Tufik, I thank you and I salute you. Second, I want to mention a woman I first met when she worked for Tufik and the Middle East Reporter, who went on to become a great Washington Post correspondent, Nora Bustani. Nora is quite simply the bravest journalist I ever met. There is no place she wasn't prepared to go, nobody she wasn't prepared to talk down to get a story. The fact that she was barely 5 feet tall only seemed to add to her power and presence. Nora had a gift for bringing to life what war means for ordinary people. She wrote with her heart and her head. One of her Bustani ancestors was said to have compiled the first Arabic dictionary, whose name in Arabic, Nora told me, was Muhait al-Muhait, the ocean of oceans. That's a wonderful phrase to remember when we think of where our words come from, the ocean of oceans. Third, I want to salute the Baghdad Bureau of the Washington Post. When I think of the war in Iraq, so much of it is painful to remember, and there are no columns I would more want to rewrite in light of time and experience than some about Iraq. But for all the pain the war brought, it brings a smile to my face when I think of the young Iraqis who came to work for us in that fateful spring of 2003. The door of Saddam Hussein's prison had swung open, and these outstanding young Iraqis rushed to work for the Washington Post and other representatives of a free and open media. They defied bombings, shootings, threats of kidnapping and blackmail to do their work, and took pride in their identity as members of the Washington Post family and as representatives of a press that told the truth no matter what. When it was too dangerous for American reporters to travel, they were our eyes and ears in Baghdad and around the country. Those I worked with on my visits to Baghdad in 2003 and 2004 included Khalid al-Safar, Omar Fakeki, Nasir Nouri, and Bassam Septi. Bassam now works for the ICFJ. Bassam now works for the ICFJ as Arabic editor of its International Journalist Network and is here with us tonight. To Bassam and all his colleagues, a hug and 2 kisses on the cheek. You inspire me to this day. Finally, I think of my friend Hu Shuli in China. In a country that fears the subversive power of journalism, she has dared to publish the truth. Her magazines, Caixin and Caixin, have revealed business and political scandals. They reported on the SARS epidemic when the government was still trying to cover it up. She has tried to tell the truth, as much of it as she can, in every issue. She is a born troublemaker, which is a holy virtue for people in our business. Shuli told me 9 years ago when I first met her in Beijing that she dreamed of publishing the first real newspaper in China. I have sent many friends to work with her in the years since. You will know that China has really arrived as a 21st century superpower when there is a generation of journalists like Shuli publishing the truth every week and every day and every hour. It gives me hope about our business to think that we are in a common enterprise like the foreign journalists I mentioned and the ones that we honored earlier. We need to think of ourselves as one global profession with a common set of journalistic values, a common ability to distinguish truth from lies, a common willingness to expose corruption and dishonesty. When we think about our profession in those terms, I hope we can see past the financial traumas of the past few years and appreciate the essential and irreducible value of what we do when we do our best work. So thank you for this Lifetime Achievement Award. Hold the obit file open for a while yet, please.